I'm Karen Das.
And I'm Vinay Harrichan from the Cutlass magazine.
So this is the story.
Right, they're doing it like this, right? I'm mashing it up so.
All right. So first, thank you everybody for your contributions for this past week. Congratulations to Suriname, recently commemorated 150th anniversary of Indian arrival. And here in Trinidad and Tobago, we commemorated Indian Arrival Day on May 30th. So with this in mind, we thought we'd feature a week of words related to ancestral heritage. So Vinay, let's get started with the journey across the seas. And this journey would have produced words Karya Pani. So some were able to quickly identify Karya Pani. Some worked out Karya meaning black, some people worked out the pani, and others were just confused because they had never heard Karya Pani, possibly because they're more familiar with Kala Pani.
Yes, exactly. So just as you mentioned, Karya Pani means black water, dark waters, and people might be more familiar with Kala Pani. So I noticed some answering, salty water or rough water, but just know that Karya is our Trinidad Bhojpuri word for kala, meaning black. So Karya Pani, black water, dark water.
Mm-hmm. And just briefly explain why they would have described it as Karya Pani or black water.
Yeah, as we know, hearing tales from the elder generations, obviously the journey from India, Muluk, was not an easy one coming to the Caribbean. Many people didn't know what they were signing up for. They thought they were going to another part of India, or they thought they were going to a country that was more close by. So the usage of Kala Pani or Karya Pani represents how rough that journey was, how dangerous it was, how many hardships they would have faced while on these ships, whether it was, people dying from malnutrition or starvation or salt or sickness. And so the Karya Pani is meant to show, how difficult that trip was. The fact that many people left knowing that they might not have a return. And there was the idea that, once you left India and you crossed the Karya Pani or the Kala Pani, that meant you would lose status in India, you would lose caste in India, and therefore you might not be able to return.
Now, to get across the Karya Pani, you'd need a Pal ke Jahaj. Again, some were not so quick with their response though. They had to work. They knew Pal and they knew Jahaj. It was just connecting the both. Pal ke Jahaj.
Yeah, so Jahaj, a lot of people knew was the Hindustani word for Jahaz, which is more Hindi, the J switching to the Z there. But Jahaj again is a ship, a boat, a large vessel, a sailing vessel. Now the use of Pal ke Jahaj means a sailing vessel. Pal being the Hindustani word for a sail. And a lot of people know that when you spread pal is that long sheet that you sit on made with the rice bags, but it can also be used for the sail of a ship, the sail of, a large vessel. So pal ke jahaj is a more direct word to mean a sailing vessel, a sailing ship. And so they've known they would have required that sail, that pal, to catch the wind and use it in their travels from India to the Caribbean. And so, yes, and I think some older people might be familiar with the word windjammer, is what the British would call the ship. Windjammer, meaning that the sail catches the wind, but our ancestors would have said pal ke jahaj.
Pal ke jahaj. Pal ke jahaj. Here bole windjammer. Yeah. Ye Angrezi bole windjammer. Humne bole pal ke jahaj.
So a ship with sails.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And on that theme of migration and immigrants, well, you'd probably ask the question, Kaun des se aile? Kaun des se aile? Which was our Trinidad Bhojpuri phrase or expression last week.
So Kaun des se aile, to break it up word by word, Kon means what or which, and then se means from, and des is the Bhojpuri equivalent of desh, meaning country or state or land, and then aile is having come from. So kon desh se aile means from what country have you come from? And so back then, if you would have asked someone kon desh se aile, they probably would have responded muluk, muluk meaning India, or muluk des, meaning the land of India, the country of India. So that's an important thing to remember, and you might hear it used in songs with a more standard Hindi pronunciation, and that would be Kaun Desh Se Aaye. But we know our Bhojpuri is Kaun Desh Se Aile. And sometimes in songs, we all know that these singers like to add a little artistic liberties. So you might hear certain sounds attached to the end of the word to make it flow a little bit more. So konde se aile might be used in a sentence if you're speaking, but in a song, it might be kona de sa se aile. And that just helps the song flow a little bit better.
Harikona disa se ya ye pawana suta Harikona disa se ya ye pawana suta.
Is it the same as asking kahawa se aile?
Yeah, kahua se aile. Kahua means from where. Now the use of kon is more direct of saying from what country, from what land. But kahua or kaha is just a in general where.
Ah, okay, all right. And if you'd like to add some songs to your music library, or you probably if you enjoy the oldie goldie Bollywood songs, and you're a fan of Talat Mahmood, you'd remember that classic from a 50s movie, Boot Polish. It was a duet with Asha Bhosle, Chali Kaun Se Desh.
चली कौन से देश गुजरिया तू सज धज के.
So that should sound familiar to you. And there's a Marathi song as well, Kaun Se Desh Challa. Before we move on to another Trinidad Bhojpuri word, you just mentioned muluk. So can you just briefly explain muluk or mulk?
Yeah, so muluk is the Trinidad Bhojpuri word for India. Now, typically in standard Hindi, you might hear people use mulk, mulk being the Hindustani or the Hindi word for country, land. However, as we know, our ancestors having come from India pre-partition, they wouldn't have made a difference between Pakistan, India, Bangladesh. So they would have just known their country as muluk, muluk des or muluk. So when you say kon des se aile, you typically would have heard a response like muluk des or muluk, being we came from India, we came from our country of India.
I believe Sudhir left a comment and used muluk as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's another one many of us can add to our vocabulary, muluk. Let's move on. Now, what would indentureship history be if we omitted ketari kate? Ketari kate. So some used ket and tried to figure it had something to do with the farmland, it had something to do with field. Kate should sound familiar because we recently covered the word katawa and katao, katana. So ketari kate.
Yeah, so ketari kate is the verb meaning to cut cane, ketari meaning sugar cane or cane, and kate being the Hindustani verb for to cut. So when you ask, what did our ancestors come to the Caribbean for? You could always respond, ketari kate, or you could say, Cutlass se ketari kate, meaning they would cut the cane with a cutlass.
And a ketari katwa would be a cane cutter.
A cane cutter.
There you go. And we wrap up, as usual, with a Trinidad Bhojpuri food-related word, and we decided to go with something some people might have in their pantry, and that is ajwain. Some simply say jawain, ajwain or jawain. I had thyme, I had seasoning, and I had seeds as some of the comments.
Yes, exactly. And I really would be happy if people could comment under this video and say whether or not they've heard ajwain or jawain, just to see which one is probably more popular there. But they're both used for the same thing. And ajwain or jawain, it's a small dark brown seed and it has a certain aroma to it. It might not be favorable to some people, but it is sometimes used to make, in Indian cooking, to make masala. And I did notice some people commenting saying that it looks similar to the jeera or the cumin.
Mhm.
So that's a visual reference for you. It is a small seed and it looks similar to that. But yeah, and I believe the English equivalent, if you might be more familiar with that, is caraway seeds or bishop seed. And some people did reference to that in the comments. But yeah.
Yeah, I saw Bishop's Weed, and I saw that comment where someone says it looks a lot like the Jira. But it's not actually, but it just looks alike that, and very different flavor. But if you would like to try some recipes, you can. Let's see, these were some that I came across. Ajwain aloo curry. We can try that. There's ajwain tomato bhindi. Not a fan of bhindi, but okay. And there's ajwain soup. So if you're feeling a little adventurous, you can try one of these, and you can get back to Vinay and myself, because I don't think Vinay would try any of these. Would you?
No, I don't think so.
Aloo curry, maybe. Dilki Ramrup commented. She said she would sometimes add this to samosas. She would use it in samosas, but she's not too fond of it.
Might try that one. These
Yeah. Sudhir offered some tips as well for ajwain, some health benefits, so you can have a look there as well. But this is another fun week. Thank you all, everybody, for contributing, for sending your messages. I see we have some new people keeping up with Trinidad Bhojpuri. That is awesome. And here's how you can get in touch with Vinay at the Cutlass magazine.
Yes, you could follow me at Cutlass Magazine on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. Feel free to send me a Sundays or message on cutlasspodcast@gmail.com. And then also please take these videos that we post and share them in that family WhatsApp group, your messages with your family, your group chats, and see what they say.
So, if you're feeling a little adventurous, you can... Did you hear that? Like a weird horn. Okay, let me do it.